like to welcome you all to Art Presence today. I'm going to do a demonstration on the use of pastel, particularly with underpaintings. And I'm going to show you some examples of different underpaintings, and then I'm going to choose one and do that. And the reason that an underpainting is influential for a pastel is that pastel is a laborious process in terms of doing a lot of strokes. With pastel, unlike oil, we can't mix colors. So we have to buy all of these different pastels, and then we have to layer them. And we want to layer them not too heavily, because otherwise, you know what happens with complements, you get mud. You might have picked up a couple complements, not realized it in your tree, a red and a green. You try mixing them together and you've got mud. So very gentle layering. The laborious process is shortened by doing an underpainting. If you do the underpainting right, your painting can be 50% or more done by the time you get to the pastel part, which is amazing. I like to call it the armature, the structure, the anatomy of the painting. And the interesting thing is to do studies of that anatomy in black, white, and gray, and then to do color studies of that anatomy in color. So this is a study in black and white and gray, and these are just felt tip pens and then the white paper being left. And this is called a value study. Value meaning light, medium, or dark. Are the elements of this picture that I'm going to paint to be light, medium, or dark? So I'm assigning each portion of the painting. The next thing is the color scheme. I am going to assign a color scheme to this painting, otherwise I will spend my life using yellow, brown, green, blue. In my studies of the color wheel, which I also bought and didn't use for many years, I learned that I can choose a color scheme. So I am going to assign a color scheme to this picture that hopefully will knock everybody's socks off, because they'll go, oh, I've been to Arizona Beach, it's just brown, and it's on a gray day, it's gray, you know, which is what we all think. So I write down analogous colors, because I'm going to choose colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So yellow-green is going to be my dominant. And it's really important for me to choose a dominant color for the painting, because halfway through the color application I will get lost and end up with too much purple if I don't assign a dominant. So yellow-green is what I saw as dominant. What's next to it? Analogous means next to. Green and yellow. Okay, yellow-green dominant with yellow-green, and I write it down, and red-violet across the wheel as the complement. Done here, I've done a sketch with what's called a watercolor pencil, and then I just ran over it with water. This is good because if you use a regular pencil, which you can, it goes away if you underpaint too much over it with color. And then, oh, I'm at square one with the square and nothing in it.
Would you ever do a combination of oil and what, I mean, do part of it underpainted in one method and part in another method?
I think it's marvelous that you bring that up, because that to me is scary, and yet why not? Why not? Because maybe you want your grass to be softer, so you use water or watercolor, and you want your trees to be dynamic, so you use oil. Getting us out of holding it like a pen, and they're having us hold it like this, and hopefully standing back and doing a full arm. And there's a reason for that. When you hold something like a pen, even when you're drawing, your brain is in a different mode. It's in schoolroom mode, it's in handwriting mode, it's in don't make a mistake mode. And when you're going like this, it's in creative, flamboyant, I can do anything I want, I'm not thinking, I'm just painting. And I noticed my underpainting, I tried not to do, in my underdrawing, a lot of boring straight lines. The only straight lines you'll see were for what we'll find out are tree trunks. And a lot of times when they're really skinny tree trunks, I won't do both sides. I'll just do one line. Because if you've ever done things like trees, you try to get the color right, they get fatter, they get fatter, they get fatter. And then all of a sudden, you have 4, 5, or 6 trees, and the critique person goes, they're all the same size. Why am I putting a path in? Because in the intensive study I've done in the last month, and it's been with Ronnie Marsh, in order to get people into a painting, you have to create an entrance. That photograph has no entrance. What we're doing is something called leading the eye of the viewer. If we don't, They're standing outside and they may never enter in. The average time a viewer looks at a painting in a gallery is 3 seconds. And I watched it happen. I know it's true, 3 seconds. If they stay any longer, you've done something right. And you... Now with pastel, you have the choice to blend or not to blend and what to blend with. Pastels are like little crystally granules. They actually have a sheen and a granular quality to them. The more you blend them, the more that sheen goes away. And sometimes you want that and sometimes you don't. If you have something in the background and this set of trees is way in the background, you can convey that by softening it, blending it, and it goes back. So I'm going to do a little finger blending. Now there are people who create, a bloody mess when they blend with a finger. That's never happened to me. They must use a stronger grit paper or really be going at it. I always like to have things in the picture that are a little bit of a mystery. Alfred Hitchcock said when you make a movie, leave some of the plot unexplained. And he always does that. It's sky holes with trees. You know what sky holes are? There's a rule about that. They have to be darker than the sky. Until I started working with the color wheel, I was just thinking green. I was not thinking yellow-green and where it was placed on the wheel. But it's really important. So often we buy paints and colors in these primaries because we're familiar with them and they stand out. But yellow-green is an actual category. Red-violet is an actual category. It's very different from red. And if you don't have these in-between colors in your palette, your paintings are not going to have the full spectrum of light. So when you go to buy your colors, definitely bring your wheels with you and say, do I have enough here? Do I have enough here? You want at least one in each of these key points in your box. I like to do a little bit without finishing, that's why I need this. I'll go all around the painting and then come back later and start to refine. So I didn't make a line for the shadow, but the shadow is important. Here it is. Okay. So I'm going to remember, I'm not going to go to it yet because it's dark, but I'm going to remember that it's going to need to be in here. And I'm going to go to that yellow. I'm going to be daring and take one of the lightest yellows that I can and put it back here. So here is vine charcoal. We didn't talk about it, but one of my teachers as well uses this vine charcoal for soft. He's the one that does the gorillas coming out of the mist, and he does this for soft definition. So since I did complete tree trunk here and I'm not ready to do the white yet, I'm just going to put this in. This fine charcoal blends great with pastel. So I'm going to stroke some of that in here. And here I'm just turning and twisting and looking for little leafy effects. The pastel pencils, which are not as soft as the soft, but not as hard as the hard. And we all know about working with pencils, we've done it ever since we were little kids. And this is where we can start getting some stroke work. Might even be easier to see right here. And the stroke work, especially in the foreground, gives it a lot of variety. I'm sticking to my palette. There are colors I'm not allowed to use. So I'm going to use the same things in the pencil. We are fortunate to have one of my favorite teachers, my first pastel teacher, and my most recent pastel teacher, because I took a workshop from Ronnie last month. And it was absolutely fantastic. This is Ronnie Marsh. She is here in Medford, and we're very fortunate to have her.
If somebody wants to take one of your classes or find out more about you, where do they find you at? Do you have a website or?
I have a website.
And
It's my name is spelled R-O-N-I.
Oh.
And my website is www.ronniemarsh.com.
Okay.
I think the most important thing with your painting is to take chances, because boring is easy to do. And I'm going to make a decision that the light is coming in from here, because if I look at the leaves, they're kind of bright from here and kind of dimmer here. And the nice thing about these hard pastels are these little square edges that stay the whole time. So you can create linear effects with them much more easily. Also go to your pencils, but be careful with your pencils because you'll start to get the stick effect with the pencils if you don't vary the pressure. Hold the pencil also as much as you can this way rather than this way.